Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Hanover Selectboard meeting of, believe it or not, December 19, 2022. We're here tonight to have some fun and do good work for the town. I don't see anyone for public comment. But before we do that, could I get can we get one of you, the gentleman with a hat, will you come up to the podium, please? Yes. And would you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Race Gilbert.
And you're here, what function do you provide here tonight?
I'm helping Nick show everyone the meeting over TV.
Can you tell us a little about your hat?
Okay, so...
And your hat, yes, your hat.
So this is called a fedora or a Homburg, depending on what part of the world you live in. I love that we're doing this. We just talked about this 5 minutes before the meeting started, so. And I collect these.
And how many hats might you have?
Over 60.
Over 60. And thank you for sharing the picture of them. How you pile them on top of each other?
Yeah.
Pile must be 4 feet high?
It's about 3.5 feet tall, and it's hard to carry them all at once from place to place. Luckily, I don't have to do it much.
Okay.
Can you wear them all at once, or?
I've tried. I have tried. What's the story called? There's some story where the guy...
Cat in a hat?
No, something caps.
Caps for sale?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Caps for sale,
Yeah.
where he wears a whole stack of
That's
hats.
right.
I've tried that. It doesn't usually work.
That book was not realistic.
No.
I hate to tell you this, but we have an expectation now that you wear a different hat
Every single time.
for a meeting, please.
Well, that'll be easy as long as I have one a week, because then I can wear one every single week for all 52 weeks of the year.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The first order of business is a proclamation. David, will you come forward and introduce yourself as a former employee of the town, please?
Wow.
Well, because I hear you retired like yesterday or the day before or something.
Well, effectively, yes, because I have 10 years of service in. It is technically a retirement, but thank you. It does feel strange being here as a former employee, but I'm very grateful for this.
We have a proclamation for you, and it's my privilege to be able to read it.
Thank you.
So this proclamation recognizes David Stewart for 10 years of service and achievements working for the Hanover Department of Human Resources. Whereas David Stewart has served as Director of Hanover Department of Human Resources since December 3rd, 2012. I guess that should get you your 10, right? Whereas Dave, having served as a lawyer on behalf of both public employers and employees, brought a wealth of legal knowledge and a cautious approach to his work. And whereas David has many lengthy conversations with the town manager beyond normal work hours and well into the weekends. And whereas Dave, upon his arrival, never missed a beat, successfully handling many competing viewpoints while completing the town's class and comp study. Whereas David tackled 2 comprehensive rewrites of the town's employment policies to ensure that they were up to date and reflected current legal and workplace trends. Whereas Dave enthusiastically took on the role of benefits specialist, even though his background was not in benefits administration. And whereas David negotiated myriad union contracts and frequently managed delicate employee relationships. Now therefore, I, Peter L. Christie, on behalf of the Select Board, community members and employees of the town of Hanover, do hereby issue this proclamation to David Stewart in recognition of his many achievements, and we extend our gratitude and appreciation to David for 10 years of exemplary service to the town. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
We have a nice little proclamation for you here, sir.
Oh, thank you.
And would you come forward and I'll come out.
Very exciting to do. Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
And I would like you to limit your remarks to 20 minutes.
Well, I'm honored and humbled, and thank you so much. It has been a privilege, truly a privilege, to serve this community and to serve the employees of this community over the last 10 years. And I feel like there were some important successes, there were some challenges, and there is unfinished work. And I'm excited with Alex here and the new HR director coming in, that there will be even greater success for not just for the HR department, but for all of our employees. I just want to thank the board for your time, your support, being a great sounding board for me, for ideas, whether good or not so good. I'm very touched, and I just want to say thank you and thanks to this community for all that you have done for me over the past 10 years. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Alex,
And thank you, and enjoy your retirement.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and have you realized you're actually retired? It's not just a long weekend?
Well, I'm getting there.
Yeah, it takes about a month.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Enjoy.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Alice, would you like to introduce Ellen to our
Sure.
audience and to the select board?
We have sort of another side of the coin,
Ellen,
which is a new.
Ellen, so step up here. Get used to it. Get used to it. Ellen, who might you be and where might you live?
Well, I'm Ellen Bullion, and I live here in Hanover. My husband and I live out on Hanover Center Road, almost to the line, town line.
I'm glad you stayed on this side of the line. Thank you. And what role might you be playing with the town now?
Well, I'm stepping into the role of the finance director, and looking forward to heading up the team that we have, and leading the department. First and foremost, of course, the budget process, which will be challenging this year to catch up. And then just really looking forward to, David mentioned a lot of the good work that's done. I look forward to sort of leveraging the great work that's being done, but then also bring some improvements to the team and to the town.
Great, thank you. Ellen, we're only about 6 weeks behind schedule on our budget, so I don't understand what you're worried about.
Yes, Dad,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Bert. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next order of business is a correction for the 11th Courtyard. So you need a motion to, this is from the Board of Assessors, I believe, or from the Assessing Department. So the motion we need is for us to
Approve the
To
abatement.
approve, I guess we have to approve this abatement, don't we?
I move we approve the abatement request for 11 Courtyard. No, approve the second half supplemental property tax to correct the coding error to allow for the proper calculation of real estate located at 11 Courtyard.
Okay, and for the viewing audience, we've had an explanation of this in our package.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
And there is another abatement. Athos, you're on.
I move to approve the abatement correction for 54 King Road.
I'll second that.
Discussion, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Both abatements have been approved or adopted.
Here, I think maybe you should just mention for the record and the public that we're missing 2 select board members tonight because they're
Yes.
out of the area.
Yes,
With
right,
travel.
we're missing 2 of our members tonight, but we still have a quorum. I know Nancy's in Chicago. I'm not sure where Joanna is. Huh? Anyway, we're missing both of them. I'm going to leave that one alone because just leave that alone.
It's just a factual
Factual
statement.
statement, we're missing 2.
Any attempt at humor would not be a good idea.
Okay, I'll try to behave. Okay, we have wonderful donations again, which we appreciate. Find these if I can. We have 2 donations, I believe, from Joseph,
Yeah, skim all the way through the,
from Joseph and Miriam Pidafar, hope I haven't mispronounced that, for $100 each to the Hanover Police Department. Both to the Hanover Police Department. And we have one from Patrick and Amy Dunfry to the town of Hanover, to the Etna Library. And we have one from John and Nancy Collier for the Etna Library for $500. So can I hear a motion to accept these generous donations?
I'll move.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. It's amazing we get many of these donations for fire department, police department, and the library. And it's just wonderful for people to show their appreciation in that way. Thank you. Okay, we are moving along. What happens? We have the minutes of December 5. I couldn't see. Anyone have any additions, deletions?
No, I would move to accept as written.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, they are adopted. Alex, administrative report.
Sure, thank you. A couple different updates. First is on hiring and a kind of human resources front. So the first already we talked a little bit about, which is the hiring of our new finance director, Ellen, which we're very excited about. The next is that we are currently conducting interviews for the human resources director. So that is the person who will not replace, but be after Dave. And we have some great applications, and we will hopefully have some more information about that in the new year. We are working through our staff surveys and compensation plans, something that is kind of an ongoing question and issue. We were lucky to have 75 staff fill out surveys about compensation, benefits, workplace dynamics, and things like that. As a follow-up to that, we're also hosting, this is something new that we're doing this year, we're hosting feedback sessions for union and non-union employees, so all staff, regardless of whether they participate in a collective bargaining unit, are able to provide a little bit of interactive feedback and have a conversation about their compensation and just sort of be a little bit more involved in the process. We'll have more to talk about that in January. But we do have those 3 feedback sessions coming up, and we have a handful of staff who have RSVP'd so far, so excited to sort of follow up on some of the surveys, ask some more questions, and get to know some of our staff a little bit better. And of course, we are also starting to move through our collective bargaining negotiations, which we can't really get into much here in public. Also have been continuing to host, I think the next one is this Thursday, with a monthly meeting with other town managers in New Hampshire. Now we have a couple folks from Vermont joining as well about retention and recruitment issues and kind of HR issues. And so that has been nice because we're getting more people from different parts of the states kind of involved, sharing some best practices and trying to identify some programs of how we can get more people thinking about working in local government. So that is all kind of some updates. Oh, and I skipped one. Which is we have had, since the last monthly report, we've had 4 folks leave employment with Hanover and 3 begin. So welcome to Taylor Loke and Nicholas McNutt at the Hanover PD and Ellen Bullion to Finance. Next is a brief update on the 23-24 budget process. So, and as Peter just mentioned before, we are about 6 weeks behind in the process, which all things considered is probably not so bad. Some of that is because of some hiring and staffing shortages and being without a finance director for the last couple months, but it's also been going through, we lost some institutional memory and going through some of the internal kind of accounting issues and practices that we need to do to be able to complete the audit for last fiscal year, run reports for doing this budget, and a couple other things. And so there's sort of a few different tracks that are moving forward at kind of at the same time or in parallel. One is that we have some finance consultants and professionals that are working, that are just starting this week and next week to work with our current auditors to supplement our existing finance staff and just pulling the threads on a couple of the questions that they have and making sure that all the reports are all synced up correctly. And it's just been a heavy lift, obviously, on our current finance staff not having the, even just the literal hours a week of a finance director. And so there's just a lot on their shoulders. And actually we did, I don't know if this is in here because it kind of came up late last week, but we did actually figure out an agreement with the City of Lebanon where we've hired one of their part-time employees part-time to assist us in some data entry down in our finance office. And so what's nice about that is it frees up our finance staff time to do things that really only they can do, whereas the data entry can be done with anybody who's sort of familiar with the systems and logging some of that kind of stuff into a computer. So we appreciate the City of Lebanon's help with offering that for us. And so that will, again, free up our finance staff time to spend on a couple other things. So on one hand, we're sort of moving forward on trying to address some of those questions and completing the audit. The other piece, which is where my head has been most of today, is sort of is starting to begin in spreadsheet land, which is all the operating requests coming in from all of our departments. So those are not fully complete, but we have most of that in so far. And now it's sort of going in, asking some questions, having meetings with different departments. I've met with most of the departments that have the larger budgets, you know, Public Works, Parks and Recreation, Fire, Police. And we're sort of starting to identify some of the questions and historical trends and things like that. And then we're starting the discussions about capital. And then the third kind of parallel track is completing the, getting close, not quite yet, but getting close to completing the salary study that we contracted with MRI to perform. And then starting to pull data out of that and pull data from our own salary surveys of staff and put all that together in playing out different compensation benefit scenarios that we can then incorporate into the budget process in about a month. So there's sort of, each of those three things are sort of moving right now in somewhat parallel. And what I did include in the report is just a very, very high level sort of timeline, which is that by the end of December, we anticipate that most of the non-salary and wage requests will be in, and so that is basically everything other than what we're paying people. All of the other operating expenses will be basically completed, and then from that point to the kind of middle of January, we're going to be doing a couple different cost estimates on different scenarios about how we might compensate staff in the future based on what data we're getting back from MRI. And then by mid-January, over the next month, that data gets plugged into the conversations with the collective bargaining units, and of course by the end of February, very beginning of March, we will start to crystallize with some final numbers. It is definitely a bit compressed on the tail end of this process, which is not ideal, but the department heads have been great so far about basically the things, you know, all the things that we were sort of dreaming about changing this year, some of those are getting put off for next year. And we're going to we're making it through this budget, and I think we do have some important changes, but we're triaging what's most important to make sure we get everything done on time, well ahead of the deadlines and requirements for town meeting in May. So I know I just threw a bunch of stuff out there. Any questions or anything?
I think for the viewing audience, the drop dead time is town meeting. And by town meeting, we have to have a budget, we have to have a town report, we have to have all the warrant articles. So we're working backwards to make sure we can hit those timelines, but it will be tight. It will be tight.
That it will be, but we did, and actually Ellen and I just we did a budget workshop with the New Hampshire Municipal Association last week, so that was helpful for both of us, really helpful. And they do these sort of on demand. They spend maybe 2 or 3 hours with us, and gave us their timeline documents, and we went through kind of all the steps, and so that is definitely on our radar. Yeah.
Corey?
Kari Asmus. I'm chair of the Hanover Finance Committee, and I guess first of all I want to sort of depart from this exact agenda item and just also welcome our new finance director, Ellen Bullion. I know that when we shared her resume with the Finance Committee that everybody was very excited and look forward to meeting Ellen in person and just welcome. I have to say also sort of in full disclosure, I can also tell you that Ellen has a very nice dog and a friendly husband.
Very important details.
Who I happened to meet when I was out for a walk in September. She also lives in Ruth Lappin's old house, longtime member of the ZBA. So little did she know that when she moved into that particular house that she was getting community service vibes. If she's been wondering what's been going on, it's the ghost of Ruth Lappin who's been tapping her on the shoulder, pointing her in the direction of Town Hall. At least that's what I like to think. But anyway, so looking forward to the budget season. The Finance Committee hasn't exactly weighed in on the timeline, but I can say from having followed and participated in multiple, I mean, I think it's like over 40 when you consider all the different entities, budget processes. What I can say is that no matter what you choose, there are going to be advantages and disadvantages. But generally what we have found is that, if you take the time to make sure that you get all the pieces together, that even if it pushes the timeline out a little bit more, and I'm thinking about some of Joanna Whitcomb's comments and questions at the December 5th meeting, that I definitely would encourage you to make sure that you take the time that is allowed in that budget process that you got from the Municipal Association. For example, I'm thinking, about how useful the budget books have been to the Finance Committee. You would not believe how much the narratives cut down on the number of questions and emails that you get, which actually take more time to respond to than if you had, done the budget book in the first place. So when I'm looking at, what the Finance Committee needs to do, we kind of look at everything all in. And when I look at the timeline, I see that you have until April 4th to settle with the different unions when negotiating with them. And until April 4th, and you need to continue to bargain until that date if you're bargaining in good faith. So until April 4th comes and goes, and we find out what the cost items are for those new contracts, the Finance Committee can't really say what we think of the budget because that's such a big part of the budget. So I just want to, tonight really encourage you as the end of February nears, if you feel that you're not ready for those 3 nights of budget hearings, and if your personal schedules allow some other schedule, I just would really encourage you to take the time that is allowed under statute to really get everything together, for a thoughtful presentation. Yeah, I guess that is it. But just also, I wanted to underscore again the helpfulness of the narratives. I know it is time consuming. I would just add though that I know that our previous finance director in April, shortly before town meeting, went back through and corrected everything. So I think all those cell links that maybe weren't perfect last year have been perfected. And to the extent that a lot of the narrative is boilerplate, I'm hopeful that it wouldn't actually be that difficult to provide the updates.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Anything more on your administrative report?
Yes, let's see. Couple other quick things. Next is downtown Hanover. So we are continuing to have twice monthly meetings with business owners up here in the boardroom. That has been going really well. I know I've been really appreciating the conversations, that I've gotten some nice feedback from some of the business owners who value being able to participate in this sort of group. And we kind of each meeting another relevant stakeholder shows up. So we've had a number of representatives from Dartmouth College, from the Upper Valley Business Alliance, now have the Grafton Regional Development Corporation representatives, and there's just more and more people that seem to be interested in having conversations about kind of, what's happening in our downtown, what's possible in our downtown. And we've got some really cool business owners that are sort of helping drive that discussion. I won't read out each of the topics, but they're also in the report. I think I mentioned them at the prior meeting as well. Next is the rental housing inspection ordinance, which I put in the report we discussed in the last meeting, which is that we have to take that ordinance to town meeting, that it's not something the select board has the authority to approve or adopt itself. I do know that, and I've had a few conversations with residents and some stakeholders in the meantime. If there is anybody watching who is interested in learning more about it, or you have a property that you would like to be informally inspected, Rob Hausman can be contacted and is happy to do that, and basically just walk folks through what we were thinking with the ordinance, so that people can try to demystify it a little bit, and also continue to take some feedback, so that what is presented at town meeting is sort of the best version possible. Lastly, the November Hanover Happenings is up online. I posted it in a slightly different format, where it's 3 shorter episodes, not 1 longer episode. I've gotten some good feedback from people about that. A few people laughing because, of course. And also, I did get some really great feedback, so I just wanted to throw out an extra compliment to all of our election staff and volunteers. The audio of that conversation was a little tough. It was in here, and the 5 or 6 of us were around a table, so it's not perfect. But it was a really interesting conversation with our town moderator, town clerk, one of the supervisors of the checklist, and 2 volunteer ballot clerks, and we kind of talk about what goes into the election and all the work that they do. And then in January, we're going to be doing a second part of that. So the Secretary of State is coming up here, and he's going to sit down with myself and our town moderator, town clerk, and talk about elections on almost more of a kind of statewide level, and where we're going in the future, and how important the way that we do elections is, as far as thinking about how people trust or don't trust government, and just kind of how key that is to the whole thing, and all the different mechanisms that are in place in the state and in Hanover to try and keep all of that going in the right direction. And so I think that'll be a really interesting conversation too, but just wanted to give an extra shout out to the election staff and volunteers. It is a huge undertaking, and if you're curious about how that works, we've got an hour conversation on the Hanover Happenings podcast. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Selectboard reports.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. We had a wonderful staff breakfast this, I lose track of time,
Last Thursday.
last Thursday.
Yeah.
It was we hadn't been able to have one in a few years, and it was just wonderful to be back together again, and there was a lot of excitement and smiles, and in that event, all of our department heads chip in and create breakfast for the entire staff, which they love doing and which is much appreciated. So it was a wonderful gathering. Conservation Commission met, and as I sort of previewed at our last time I reported, there's a lot of focus on proper foresting techniques relative to changing the paradigm from the 40-year economic cycle of how to manage your forest for maximum economic return versus what is best for the climate. And there's a lot of evidence that now says that the best thing you can do for the climate is to just let those trees grow and have old growth forest. So I think you're going to see a push for that from the Conservation Commission, even through the master plan, in terms of changing some of the foresting processes that we've had in the past. That's my report. Any other business to come before the meeting? There has been a request for a non-public session to discuss items pursuant to RSA 91A, 3A, B, and C.
Athos Rassis, yes.
Peter Christie, yes.
Bill Garrity, yes?
We are in non-public session. Thank you.